Hello everyone and welcome back again to a new video. Today on the new Byte we're going to build a mid-range PC which costs me around 950 euros. Though I have to say it's not the PC for myself, this is one that my neighbor is actually getting and he paid for it, so for me it's actually just a chance to vlog about building a PC in 2019 again, which I just love to do. And the special thing for me personally is that it's the first time that I'm actually gonna use one of these. Inside here is an M.2 SSD drive. Very excited about the performance differences, and everything else will be explained after the intro. For this PC, what do we have here? Let's start with the case that's just on the left here. This is the Byte Pure Base 600 case. I actually have for my personal rig the 800 case, and since I configured this whole setup here for my neighbor, I was thinking I just go with what I know, and that Byte dark base, a pure base 600 is basically the same thing, just a little bit smaller. He said he's got to put it probably under a desk or something. He's not really interested in LED lights, so for the fans that are actually against all the RGBness out there, they will be delighted that basically everything inside here won't be using RGB, and even the graphics card will probably turn off. So that's the cool thing about it. Next up, of course, for the power, we have the Byte Pure Power 11 for 700 watts. Definitely more than enough. We calculated that we need around 400 watts of power for the whole setup, which you just get to, so 700 watts definitely enough. As before mentioning again, an M.2 drive from here. And for the RAM, I have a kit of two 16 gigabyte RAM slots from G.Skill, the Ripjaws. Also a thing that I use personally, so I just think, why not? Definitely more than enough for, of course, gaming right now. And the purpose of this build I'll explain in just a second. Because right now we're just getting to the CPU, and for the choice of CPU this time, I was specifically thinking, hey, let's go mid-range, and that was perfectly chosen with the Ryzen 5 2600, not the X version, just 2600, because this is already a hexa-core CPU, and my neighbor is actually not like me, for example, someone who is using media and video processing and editing. He's just consuming all of that. So I was thinking hexa-core definitely more than enough, and even with the upcoming third generation of Ryzen CPUs, it's still a very good CPU with a very nice price. And due to just being wanting to have the PC now, I figured probably the next generation won't be that much better, that I would actually advise him to wait even longer. He was using an 8-year-old system, so this is definitely much of an upgrade. For the cooling, we have this giant Byte. Again, I love the family of products. I just have to admit that I use them also myself in my personal rig, so I just went with the whole system that basically works together perfectly. The Dark Rock Pro 4 cooler, air cooler. He wasn't really interested in liquid cooling because we're also not going to overclock the system here yet again. So there's more than enough good cooling in there. And most importantly, it's quiet. Of course, for the motherboard, we went with ASRock, a company that I also trust myself with very much. We didn't go for a high motherboard, we just went with the B series, so the B450 is it. And the good thing is, even if he wants to upgrade the CPU, as I've heard, remember correctly, hopefully, he can, even if he upgrades later to a later version of Ryzen, still use the very same motherboard. And again, everything that works in here is just good enough. We don't need the highest quality of motherboard for this build. So for the good price that we have here, I actually just went with this one. And last but not least, we had a very interesting discussion about the GPU. I was interested in maybe a 1070. I said maybe let's look around into the 1660 ranges, and we actually came up with, after looking at some performance numbers, that the RTX 2060 graphics card here in the MSI version with the very two large twin Frozen coolers, which I personally was a favorite when I used it, and the 1080 graphics card that I had before I switched over to my 1080 Ti from Asus. Gotta say, this is a very solid graphics card from what I've heard, and of course with the RTX advantage. There are a few cool things like DLSS, which you can use then to upscale his games, because he's actually going to use, instead of a monitor, a 4K TV, so he can also enjoy streaming and games as much as he can in 4K. He plays like Diablo games and World of Warcraft very soon, so he's not like a, for example, a Destiny type player where he would actually probably benefit much more from the 2080. And since we were looking at the price tag, we're thinking, okay, we should keep it in the mid-range. I went with the 2060. Right, then that is all explained, which we're gonna build here. Let's begin. First, of course, we assemble everything outside of the case, so we put that away and then start the video montage.
Next level. Next level.
Alright everyone, and now it's time to finally turn on the PC and see if all the parts actually work together. For that, I've put everything in here. Of course, as you saw, in the meantime I installed lots of graphics card, and the power of course is already there. So let's just connect the HDMI here. There you go. And now we just need to start it and see if it actually works. So for that, I turn on the power here, and then just need to touch the power and the ground. There we go. Fans are spinning properly, it seems. There's air coming out there. Now we just need to see the boot. As soon as we can see something here, we're good. Oh, that is good. And then we still see the fan going off in the power save mode, so it doesn't turn anymore. And yeah, reboot and select power boot device. Awesome. So let's restart. It is super quiet. Like, I have a fan running the back one, the big one actually. You hear that probably more than the whole system. I'm gonna do some actually close-up recordings with the sound and everything. Right, and there we can see we got the motherboard, the D450 Pro 4. We got the AMD Ryzen 5 2606 core processor with a 3.4 gigahertz speed. Got 16 gig of RAM in 2 slots, each 8 gigabyte. And should see in the boot section, there we go, also the NVMe drive, which you see here. So this also installed 256 gigabytes of SSD. All working. Now it's time to put everything in the case and talk to you later. Alright everyone, and we're back again here, the final few moments of this video. It is quite interesting to see how this build came together. There were a few problems at the end. For example, I wasn't able to see the true extra drive. There's an SSD in the back and then HDD in the HDD cage here. And I couldn't see them in the BIOS anywhere. And the reason for that was, after I checked the manual, always check the manual, is that if you have an NVMe SSD, two of the SATA ports in the motherboard are actually being disconnected, so the PCIe lanes can be used for the NVMe SSD. So after a few minutes of looking back and forth and wondering why nothing's there, I just plugged it in to another port and then everything worked fine. And I didn't even need to do anything with the Windows install. It's all there. It's already running on an SSD. The reason why the neighbor that I'm building this PC for wanted a new NVMe SSD is simple. He had all his games on an HDD, so usually it's actually you have one SSD and an extra maybe where also the games are on, like I have that for example. He didn't have that, so now he has also an SSD, an NVMe SSD even for games, and that's just awesome. I'm just currently installing Destiny 2 to see how that runs on this system. But before that I did a benchmark with superposition, and I gotta say, for the goal of playing 4K, doesn't look that good, to be honest. And there's probably people in the comments saying already, oh, this is not a good selection, of course, for 4K gaming. But we need to be mindful of who I'm building this PC for. My neighbor is playing lots of Diablo 3 and World of Warcraft, and these games are just not as intense, of course, as fully fledged FPS titles. So I have a comparison, of course. This is now an Ryzen 5 2600 and a GTX or RTX 2060, and we're getting, for the 4K optimized benchmark, 6,158 points and an average of 46 FPS with a minimum of 38 FPS, which, to be honest, yeah, could be better. And I know exactly how much better, because I have in my personal rig an AMD Ryzen 7 2700X CPU and a GTX 1080 Ti. So the 1080 Ti is much better, and how much better is the results are compared to the 6,150 points here. I have 9,445 points in the 4K optimized same benchmark, with an average of 70 FPS and minimum of 55.98 FPS in the same benchmark. So that's a difference of almost, I don't know, 17 FPS minimum, which are huge differences at 4K. If it's flickering in that range, you can already see and tell that it's not that much of a good experience. But then again, I paid so much more money for the system that I use personally, and I use it in so many different ways. And I'm very happy to say that I still think, for who I built this PC for, I've made the good choice actually. Did not pay more than 1,000 euros. Where 950, didn't need to pay extra for Windows 10 and everything. It just works from the old system. So I'm personally very happy about what it turned out to be and how powerful it is for what we paid. And of course also, it is super quiet, it is on air. The loudest thing in this whole PC, of course, is the DVD drive. And yes, my neighbor, just like myself, he always wants to have that in there just in case he needs to burn a CD or something, which, yes, some of us still do actually. Like in a car, we just put it in there and want to listen to our music instead of just on a phone, for example, and things like that, you know. So absolutely, this was the new Bytes PC building video, the very first one, 2019. Hopefully on the next one, we'll see what will happen in the future. Do you think I could have saved more money somewhere or get a little bit more performance for the same money? Let me know. I'm always eager to learn. The biggest thing for me, of course, was using that very tiny NVMe SSD, which was just interesting, and it's so fast still for what we paid for it. It wasn't even, I think, like 60 euros or something for 256 gigs. I think it was even less. It was definitely worth the money and investment for what we're using it now in this system here. That's all for today. Have a nice weekend, have a nice day, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.